Welcome back to Tingenuity AI. In this video, I'm going to talk about a new custom GPT Dungeon Master Assistant. It will be available in the GPT store as soon as that's available, but I wanted to make this video to show you all that it can do and all that it can do to help you create an adventure for yourself and for your friends. I developed this prompt along with a number of others to play a Dungeons and Dragons adventure last year when the DnD movie was coming out. It was a blast, and it was also a really great opportunity to learn how to give ChatGPT very structured input and get very structured output. So you may have seen other videos out there that talk about how to use ChatGPT to play Dungeons and Dragons, but I guarantee you, unless you saw our other video, which has been viewed thousands of times, you have not seen this. All right, just to give you a taste of what we're going to be looking at and how ChatGPT with the Dungeon Master Assistant Custom GPT can help you develop a really great adventure, I'll just show you this quick overview. This is how good ChatGPT can be at helping you develop a story. This is a scene art that I've had it create based off of an interaction that the players chose with this character. Now look at how similar this character is to the scene art that it generates later. So it's pretty fascinating how consistently you can create an adventure when you use a tool like this. Now, I'm going to start a new chat, and these are some basic prompts. Now, this prompt is different from our character generation prompt. Our character generation prompt, the DnD character architect, is available for free. This is a custom GPT that will be available for purchase. But it has some specific instructions, some specific quirks. And so to start, it has here, tell me how to use this GPT. And we're going to make sure that that's one of the conversation starters that always starts out, because you're going to need instructions. The GPT is developed so that it has extremely specific input on the instruction side so that you can get the level of output that you're going to get out of this prompt. And we're going to look at probably the scene generation and battle prompts so that you can see what those are like. There are example prompts at the beginning of using this custom GPT as well. Now, you can see here we've got scene generation. So basically, you have to give it this structured bit at the beginning, scene info, colon, and then an information about a scene or a setting. When you do that, what's going to happen is that the custom GPT will generate a scene including non-player characters and their backstories, and it may also create art of those scenes if you ask for that. It has a couple of other really cool features here, so you can ask it to generate random events. So let's say that the players camp for the night. Frequently, a dungeon master will roll a dice and see if anything happens to them, if they're ambushed, that kind of thing. And so you can have GPT do that for you. Another thing is you can have, if a player is all like, well, I want to check this or I want to check that, you as the dungeon master can see how that interaction turns out. So you can say action, give a description of the scene and what's happening and the player's role, and ChatGPT can generate, what happens for you. And then finally, we've got some battle prompts, which can help you run battles. Typically, this can be complex. It can slow things down if you're not an experienced DM or you're not playing with experienced players. And so giving ChatGPT that task can help you run a more dynamic and interactive battle. And we'll definitely, like I said in this video, cover scene generation and the battle prompt. So I'm going to start, this is, again, tell me how to use this GPT is going to be front and center here as one of the conversation starters. But I want to jump in here to scene info. The players enter a tavern, right? This is like the stereotypical thing that happens in every adventure. At some point, you're going to enter an inn or a tavern of some sort. And when you do, ChatGPT with our custom GPT is going to generate the following. It's always going to use Markdown format to create bolded headings and titles. It's going to use Markdown format to create tables when appropriate. But it's going to guide us and you as the reader of what happens. Now, what's great is you get this narrative description from the start, and that can help you, especially if you're an inexperienced dungeon master, to already have the narrative for you. And so you can sound a lot more experienced. The creak of the aged wooden door announces the party's arrival into the cozy, dimly lit interior of the Whispering Willow, a tavern known for its secretive patrons and intriguing whispers, right? And then you get this opportunity to build and create a world that's more detailed than you might be able to do on your own. So let's talk about our non-player characters. Obviously, it's a tavern. It's filled with a number of people, but we've specifically asked ChatGPT in our custom instructions to create certain non-player characters that your players can interact with. And so first we get Eldon Marrowroot, an elven bartender with silver hair, Greta Ironfist, a burly dwarven woman with a braided red beard and steely gray eyes, and then we've got Lysander Quickfoot. We've got a number of really great options here. And Seraphina Truthlight, an Aasimar bard. Seraphina's celestial heritage is evident in her glowing golden eyes and silvery hair. So the scene is set. Characters that your players can interact with are placed in the scene. And then additionally, story hooks are generated so that your players can take this adventure wherever they want to go. And so what's really interesting is, oftentimes, every human being that I know is very imaginative and very creative, but this hasn't taken over my imagination or replaced it in any way. It has amplified our Dungeons and Dragons adventures in this very cool, creative, and interesting way. And so we've got these characters who want to do different things. Lysander Quickfoot has info about a high-paying heist but needs a team. That's a cool adventure you could go on. Greta Ironfist wants to reclaim her ancestral axe. Would you like to generate scene art of any of the NPCs or the scene? When I first created this prompt, this set of prompts for Dungeon Masters, I relied on Midjourney for scene art and character art. But now that DALL-E has been built into ChatGPT, it's proven to be really, really helpful. And so, yes, I would like to make scene art and art for each NPC. And so we'll see how ChatGPT handles this request. It hasn't always been reliable for me in terms of making a lot of images at once, but I have recently had success with this prompt. As I mentioned in some of my last conversations as I was testing and prepping this custom GPT to be released to you and prepping for this video, it created images pretty reliably. For those of you who are learning about artificial intelligence and how you can use it, a lot of people do use Midjourney for images. One of the advantages of Midjourney is that it will create 4 image options for each prompt that you give it, but you give it 1 prompt at a time. Whereas, as we're seeing here with ChatGPT, I can say, hey, make me a bunch of art, and it's doing it pretty reliably right now. So you'll see here how this art is going to be created for each NPC, but let's kind of look at the tavern as presented. So it's a shadowy and intriguing place is what was described to us. It says flickering candles set atop mismatched tables cast dancing shadows on the walls. So it's describing kind of a dark room with candles. There's aroma of spiced mead and roasted meat, hushed conversations. The wooden floor is worn smooth by countless boots, leads to a bar where an assortment of bottles and potions glint in the candlelight. Now, when I first created these prompts, I would get elegantly phrased language like this from ChatGPT. But then when I would go to Midjourney to try to get an image of similar detail, that might be a little more challenged. And again, there are reasons I still use and will continue to use Midjourney. It's amazing. But look at how much detail we get in our scene image, right? We have a bar filled with bottles, okay? We have candles flickering light and shadows across the walls. This implies hushed conversations, right? Now, here we've got our first non-player character that's been generated. So that's Eldon Marrowroot. And remember, he's an elven bartender with silver hair and piercing green eyes. They've nailed that, right? So we've got him. This is Greta Ironfist. She's a dwarf, wants you to get her ancestral axe. This is Lysander Quickfoot. Remember, he's the halfling that's going to take you on a cool heist, but needs a team, just like your Dungeons and Dragons characters need. And then finally, we've got somebody who's a celestial and wants to play you a song for some reason. So here's, and I love how it gives you some additional information about why it's doing what it's doing. Pretty interesting stuff. All right. So when it finishes here, the next part that I'm going to show you about the scene info prompt, yeah, and it does help bring its inhabitants to life, which is cool. The next part I'm going to show you about the scene info prompt is how to interact with the different adventures, okay? So I'm going to say the players choose to follow up on number 3 from the story hooks. All right. And so then it's going to generate what happens. The Heist of Shadows. Upon expressing interest in Lysander Quickfoot's proposal, the halfling leads the party to a secluded corner of the tavern. With a sly grin, he unfurls a detailed map. And then we get dialogue, we get description, and I'm hoping that it lets us, this is pretty great, right? It's generating an entire adventure for you on the spot, which is wild and kind of amazing. It gives you potential complications. And so this is an excessively good help for a dungeon master. And then, would you like to generate scene art? Yes, please generate scene art of this interaction and see what you get. And this is what's fascinating about this. When I generated these prompts and I was playing that Dungeons and Dragons game with my friends leading up to the DnD movie coming out, this is last year, it was really cool because I was showing these images on the screen. We did it in my office. We had a TV and I was putting images up on the screen. And it was like 2 or 3 games in before they realized, or everyone realized, I think some of them knew from the beginning that it was artificial intelligence, but it was a while in before people realized these images are generated by artificial intelligence. And it blew their minds. And so here we've got our scene art. And what I love about this is it's this moment captures the adventures of Lysander Quickfoot. Now look at him and compare to his original character image generated up here, right? It's not the same, not as youthful as this first image when we look down at the map, but it describes, I mean, this depicts pretty correctly what was described. And so that's generally how you can use the scene prompt, the scene info prompt. And then, you can pick some of these options. You can go to a new place, and then you can start over with another scene info prompt. And you would start over and you'd say scene info : the alley next to where the heist is going to take place. And then it will continue to generate. And now I want to share with you the magic of using this custom GPT to help you manage battles, which can be kind of a little technically complex. And unfortunately, one of those things that might slow down, especially if you're with inexperienced players, or maybe you're not the world's most experienced dungeon master. And so this is really where this prompt shines. I think it was complicated to get it to perform correctly, and it's really fun to see it work and to see it work well. One of the other things I want to do with this example is give it a little more detail. So in the last example, we just said, put them in a tavern, and it came up with the name for the tavern and the ambiance and the scenery. Whereas in this battle, I'm going to give it a little bit more detail. So I'm going to give the name of where this happens. I'm going to give it a name. So the players are in the Night Woods outside of a necromancer's tower. Villagers have found zombies and skeletons, right? There are rumors of more formidable creatures, right? So we'll see what it does. And then the necromancer's name is Eldazad. We'll just go with that. See if necromancer's name. Let's go back. Necromancers. And we'll see if he makes an appearance. And it's interesting because sometimes you'll give this prompt details like this and it might throw Eldazad in there or it might not. We're going to see what happens, but you'll see that instead of just coming up with a name, it's probably going to say the Nightwoods. Okay, here we go. Battle at the Nightwoods. Turn order. So the enemy combatants have rolled a 20 for their initiative. So they're probably going to go first. We get a beautiful narrative description. An eerie tableau of shadows and whispers where the thin veil of mist clings to the gnarled trees like a spectral embrace. This kind of stuff is brilliant, especially for less experienced DMs. And if you're not used to making vivid graphic descriptions on the fly with words, as night falls, an unsettling chill seeps through the underbrush, and the distant foreboding silhouette of Eldazad's tower looms against the starless sky. I mean, this is really good. We get enemy combatants. First, we get a zombie horde, a shambling mass of decaying bodies. The zombies are a grotesque collection of villagers and wildlife. A skeleton patrol. And then we actually get Eldazad the Necromancer. He makes a showing. He's a gaunt figure, his skin pallid and his eyes glowing with a malevolent light. Would you like to generate scene art of any of the combatants or the scene? I would like art of the scene and of the combatants. So let's see how ChatGPT does. We're going to give it a minute to create those images. And then I'm going to show you where even more magic happens, which is where the follow-up battle prompts happen. And we'll ask the prompt, just for the sake of this demonstration, remind me how to use the follow-up battle prompts. And it will probably give us some quick instructions. But here is our first view of the Nightwoods and the Tower of Eldazad. Very cool. Hopefully we'll see the zombie hordes next. And then what's beautiful about this is, again, I like to create a structured prompt so that you can get structured output. And so we've named these combatants. The zombie horde is enemy combatant 1 or EC1. We have their hit points, their armor class, their basic stats, okay? The same with the skeleton patrol, and then the same with Eldazad. And we've got a short kind of brief spell list that you as a dungeon master can take and say, I'm going to use that, right? And what's interesting with this prompt is you can even ask it to add additional combatants, and it'll do that, and it'll add them to the list. You can ask it to, on big battles with big bosses, I've been like, okay, add layer actions, add legendary actions to our big boss to see what it comes up with. And it's been very interesting, the effects that it'll generate. Here's, I can't tell if that's our zombie horde or our skeleton patrol. Well, that's our zombie horde, skeleton patrol, and Eldazad the Necromancer. So very cool. Now it's describing what it did, which is also fun. And I'm going to ask the prompt, remind me how to use the follow-up battle prompts. To use the follow-up battle prompt, use these steps. Okay, so now I'm going to tell it your turn. It's going to take on the role of the enemy combatants. And then if I tell it, hey, this combatant took on this damage, it's going to restate that for me. So let's go into that. And I'm going to say, your turn. And see how it does. Okay, so it's using the data functionality. And we've enabled all of those functionalities. So this custom GPT can search the web. Obviously, it can create images, but it can also crunch numbers. And so I think that's what it's doing here now, is it's going to roll damage and those kinds of things. So it rolls an attack roll. Okay, so these are the descriptions, and it's updating the hit points. So nothing's been lost. And then, all right, and it's asking, hey, let me know about the damage. And then I also kind of wonder if it would create images, and I'm sure it can, and I'm sure it will. But let's show, for the sake of this example, Eldazad taking hit points. Eldazad takes, let's go with 13 HP and damage from a magical blast. So let's see what happens. So now it's running that mathematical calculation again, which frankly is an upgrade. I like having this. It makes it a little bit slower, but it makes the numbers more accurate than it has been when I've run these prompts in, okay. All right, so now he's down to 17 after he took 13 hit points and damage, which is wonderful. Okay, now what's interesting here is it's saying this damage taken, assuming he was attacked. And we've got, interesting details that it can come up with. But you can see the basic gist here is that you can manage a battle, you can manage hit points, you can probably give it your initiative scores and say, okay, let's make sure we run things in the right order. And I've done a lot of things like that with this prompt to manage a battle. And I'm just so you can see it again, as easy as this, your turn, it's going to roll the dice, it's going to determine who does what. And even then, you can say your turn, period, add a sentence and say, this is what's happening in the battle. And it's so good at figuring out what to do that it will interact more in a more lively manner with things that are happening in the battle. But I find that as a dungeon master, it's nice to get kind of a quick view in this way, like, okay, these are the roles, and then I decide what happens. But if you need a little more guidance, you can absolutely get it from ChatGPT with this Dungeon Master Assistant. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed learning about the Dungeon Master Assistant or just learning about artificial intelligence in general and how you can use it with ChatGPT, like and subscribe to our channel. Follow us because we are creating content on a regular basis and putting out custom GPTs. We're so excited for this functionality and what it can allow us to do. I hope that you've enjoyed learning about Dungeons and Dragons and how you can use ChatGPT to play it. We look forward to seeing you around on our website at tingenuity.ai. And if you also have comments or questions, come visit us on our blog. Check out our courses where we can show you the actual prompts behind the GPTs, and you can learn more about how you can give ChatGPT structured input to get structured output, something that I harp on a lot, and also learn about Midjourney and other AI tools. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you around.